If you're new to the channel and you like what you see, well, welcome to Life of Gaz. Now, I try my best to upload a new video every single Wednesday, and if you want to keep up to date with that, make sure you hit the subscribe button and more importantly ring the bell to get all the notifications. Well, hey guys, I forgot to charge my camera, so to film the intro and outro I've decided to do that here at home. Now, this video was shot before the coronavirus lockdown, and the intention of this session was to go out to Fleetwood, go and fish it down on a low water and see what turned up. Unfortunately, the weather just got a little bit too brutal, the wind speed was too high, so we went up to an area which is a bit more sheltered, which was Fleetwood Channel. But don't worry, we do get a chance to get into some fish in the channel tonight. So first of all, I decided to set up my longer rod. Now this rod I didn't really hold out huge hope for, because we're between seasons now. The cod have pretty much vanished and there's still the odd one or two coming up, but not many. And the summer fish are only just starting to come in, with the odd person just picking up a small sort of schooly bass. So with that in mind, I thought what I'd do is I'll fish down the tide as we were fishing the ebb. And as we're fishing down the tide, what I decided to do was put some 4-0 hooks on a clip down pennel rig and fish some larger baits just to see if anything happens. The first bait that went on though, this was a whole lugworm tipped off with about 1/3 of a calamari squid. Now I did change this bait a few times throughout the night, but to be fair, the other rod took the lion's share of the fish. So casting distances, fishing out in the channel, this isn't a long casting venue, and the longer rod I had out at more distance than the shorter rod, and that one was at about 30 to 35 yards. Now, setting up my shorter rod, this was the rod that I'd have had my money on picking up fish. The reason for this is because Fleetwood Channel, although you can get some eels in here, is an excellent flattie bashing little venue. And whenever I come up here, I always try and put a flattie rig on just to see what's knocking about. Now, the flattie rig which I had today was a 3-hook flapper rig. Each one of these rigs were pretty much set up for flounder in place with some big spinner blades on them and lots of beads. Now these are tracked down to a size 2 hook, and each hook was fished using lugworm. And in terms of casting distance on this rod, this I had in very close. In fact, this rod spent the majority of the night at less than 10 yards out, and fishing in the channel, because it drops off very steep very quick, then really that can be quite effective. Now, part of the trick to fishing here is to not over tighten your line when it's out there, especially on the ebb, because on the ebb that water can run out quite fast, and if you over tighten it, all it does is pull your anchors out. So it's always worth leaving just a very slight loop of line and a little bit of slack out there just to take the pressure off of the weight a little bit. staring out towards my rod tips, looking out at the lights at Knot End on the other bank. I'd stuck there for about 15 to 20 minutes before picking up my first bite and landing my first fish of the night. Now, there wasn't too much of a ordeal to bring this fish in. Firstly, it was less than 10 yards out, and secondly, it was possibly one of the smallest flounder I've ever caught. He was smaller than the size of my hand. But with that being said, I was still well happy to open up the session with a fish. Now, with the channel, you don't get much in terms of the way of wave movement or surf up here, unless the wind and the wave direction are in the absolute perfect direction, which isn't very often. So releasing him is just as simple as putting him at the water's edge and letting him dive down that steep edge. And after rebaiting and casting back out to exactly the same distance, about 10 yards, I sat back down just to sit there a few minutes before picking up my next bite. And this next bite came in at around about 12 minutes after that first fish was released. And it turns out that this fish was another flounder, but the difference being it was a lot bigger than the other one. Nowhere near my PB, but double the size of the palm of my hand. Now, this was another deep hook flatfish, and don't get me wrong, I am not too bad at getting the hooks out of these guys and letting them swim off safe and sound, but I do have an idea for a technique which I'm going to put to work once this isolation thing's gone over and we're allowed to go out and fish again. So hopefully the flatties will still be about. I can go flattie bashing and see if I can set a rig up that stops these fish becoming so deep hooked. Now, the whole idea of unhooking these fish is to essentially unclip the rig from the line, and that's why I have removable hook lengths. Thread as much of that down through the gills as you can and try and get the same direction as the hook. Now, once you've done that, then what you can do is you can turn the shank of the hook round so it faces back up towards the fish's mouth, and then you can either unhook it and take it out through the gills. This works an absolute treat for being able to get those hooks out and release the fish safely. Now, I just want to show you that release again, because in slow motion this looks absolutely stunning to see the way this fish moves when you stick them down at the water's edge and watch them take off across the sea. After checking all those hooks and rebaiting the ones that needed doing, then just like I have been doing all night so far, I threw this one out to about 10 yards and put it back up on the rest, waiting for my next bite. this time of sitting there waiting, the bites actually did start to slow down. And one of the weird things about fishing Fleetwood Channel for me is that for some reason you get into the fish for a little while and then all of a sudden they dry up, which is why I never go for sessions that are too long fishing up at this venue. And this full session itself, I only fished for around about 2.5 hours. Now after sitting out on that beach for a little bit more time, I found myself into another fish, which again was another flounder. Now the difference with this little guy was, unfortunately, what he'd done was he'd taken the hook down very deep. It had gone past the gills, and this little fish unfortunately meant that I couldn't take the hook out in any of the normal ways, from just sort of turning the hook in the mouth and pulling it out, or even threading the line down through the gills. But I did manage to get the hook out because the hook was actually protruding through the skin. So what I did was I pulled the hook through, and once the eye came through, I cut the line and then made sure the fish didn't have anything left in him in terms of beads, sequins, hooks, line or anything like that, and then released him off back into the channel. But this fish decided to be awkward for a second time and just buried himself right in the edge. Now if the tide was coming in, I'd have just left him there. As it was going out, I didn't want him to strand, so just in case, I give him a little poke on the tail to watch him swim off back into the channel. And in this session I got one final bite. Now this final bite was actually a new species for that session. It's a species that I love to go out and target. I love to eat these guys, but this one was just a baby, so of course he went back. And this one turned out to be my first and only place of the night. And luckily, unlike lots of the other fish that I caught tonight, this one was fairly easy to unhook, as he was hooked nicely in the mouth, so I could get to the shank of that hook and pull it out with ease. Well guys, thanks for watching all the way out to the end. Now I definitely hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and if you have, make sure you hit the subscribe button down here, ring the bell as well. Check out my latest fishing video there, my playlist up top.